One trash can. 5 minutes, and you will never buy groceries the same way again. I know how that sounds. I thought the same thing. But then I actually did it. NASA tested one of these on the space station. Johns Hopkins found one that may cut cancer risk in half. A university in the Netherlands powered 300 street lights with the last one. From dirt. Just dirt. 4 setups. Each one cost less than a coffee, and each one was quietly buried, because you cannot build a billion-dollar industry around something someone does at home in 5 minutes with a trash can. This is all 4, back to back. The complete system, and it starts with a handful of dried beans. There is a seed so ancient, it predates written history, so nutritionally dense that sprouting it multiplies its healing compounds by factors of 4, 6, even 27. So fast to grow that it transforms from a hard, dry pellet into a crunchy, living food in less time than it takes most people to finish a book. It is called the mung bean. The story of how this seed fed civilizations for over 4,000 years was validated by modern science as one of the most powerful functional foods on Earth, was tested aboard the International Space Station, and yet remains virtually unknown as a home. Growing staple in the Western world is one of the strangest food stories you have never heard, and it starts in a place most people would never think to look. Around 1500 BCE, in the river valleys of the Indian subcontinent, farmers began cultivating a small green legume that would quietly become one of the most important protein sources in human history. Archaeological evidence suggests mung beans were among the earliest domesticated crops in South Asia. Ancient Vedic texts, some of the oldest writings in any living language, reference them. In Ayurvedic medicine, mung beans held a special status. They were considered the most easily digestible of all legumes, prescribed for the sick, the elderly, and young children. While other beans caused bloating and digestive distress, mung beans were different. They were gentle on the gut, nourishing without the discomfort. Ayurvedic practitioners called them the king of beans. They prescribed mung bean soup, known as moong dal, as the first food given to patients recovering from illness. It was the food you gave a child transitioning from breast milk. It was the food you gave someone returning from the brink. Not because it tasted good, though it does, because 4,000 years of empirical observation had taught healers that this bean healed people faster than anything else they had access to. No laboratory, no microscope, just millennia of watching what worked. Over the following centuries, mung beans traveled one of the most remarkable migration routes of any cultivated plant on Earth. They reached Southeast Asia more than 2,200 years ago. Archaeological evidence from southern Thailand confirms they were established there by at least 200 BCE. They arrived in China, where they gained prominence during the Han Dynasty, and were valued for what traditional Chinese medicine called their cooling properties. The Chinese turned them into glass noodles, jellies, and pastes. They sprouted them and stirred them into soups. By the time European colonial powers encountered mung beans in Asia, this tiny green seed had already sustained civilizations across an entire continent for millennia. But here's the detail that matters for this story. Throughout all of those centuries, across dozens of cultures separated by thousands of miles, one preparation method appeared again and again. Sprouting. Indian households sprouted them. Chinese cooks sprouted them. Thai families sprouted them. Japanese cuisine adopted them so thoroughly that sprouted mung beans have their own name in Japanese: moyashi. Billions of people across thousands of years independently arrived at the same conclusion. Something extraordinary happens when you add water to this seed and wait a few days. They did not have laboratories. They did not have nutritional science. They simply observed that sprouted mung beans made people healthier, stronger, and more resilient than the dry seed alone. It took modern science until the 21st century to explain why, and what researchers found should have made front-page news around the world. In 2012, a team at Cornell University and Fudan University in Shanghai published a study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry that would have changed everything in a rational world. they did something remarkably simple. They took dried mung bean seeds, sprouted them under controlled conditions, and then measured what happened to the nutritional content at each stage of germination. The results defied every assumption about how food works. Vitamin C, which is essentially absent in dried mung bean seeds at roughly 50 milligrams per kilogram, exploded during sprouting. By day 8, sprouts contained up to 1,285 milligrams per kilogram dry weight. That is not a modest increase. That is roughly a 24-fold multiplication of vitamin C created from nothing but water, air, and time. The seed contained almost no vitamin C. The sprout was bursting with it. The germination process manufactured it from scratch. But vitamin C was just the beginning. Total phenolic compounds, the antioxidants that protect your cells from the kind of oxidative damage linked to cancer, heart disease, and aging, increased 4.5 times. Total flavonoids, another class of powerful antioxidants, increased 6.8 times, and overall antioxidant activity, meaning the total ability of the food to neutralize harmful free radicals in your body, increased the 6 times compared to the dry seed. Think about that for a moment. The same seed, the same genetics, the same physical matter. You added nothing but water and a few days of time, and the result was a food with 6 times the disease-fighting power. The researchers specifically identified a compound called quercetin-3-O-glucoside that surged during germination. This is not some obscure molecule. Quercetin is one of the most studied antioxidants in nutritional science, linked to reduced inflammation, improved cardiovascular health, and protection against neurodegenerative diseases. The mung bean seed barely contains it. The mung bean sprout is loaded with it. The act of sprouting flipped a biochemical switch that turned a pantry staple into a pharmacy. Now here is where it gets even stranger. A separate line of research revealed that sprouting does not just add good things, it removes bad things. Every legume, including mung beans, contains compounds called anti-nutrients. These are substances like phytic acid and trypsin inhibitors that interfere with your body's ability to absorb minerals and digest protein. Phytic acid binds to iron, zinc, and calcium in your gut, preventing your body from absorbing them. Trypsin inhibitors block the enzymes your body uses to break down protein. This is one of the reasons raw legumes can cause digestive discomfort. Research published across multiple studies found that sprouting mung beans reduces phytic acid by up to 75%. Trypsin inhibitor activity drops by up to 39%. Tannins, which interfere with nutrient absorption, decrease nearly 6-fold. In simple terms, sprouting increases the vitamins, antioxidants, and beneficial compounds while dismantling the barriers that would prevent your body from absorbing them. It is as if the seed contains a locked vault of nutrition, and germination is the key. The dry bean has the nutrition but guards it behind chemical walls. Sprouting tears those walls down and multiplies what is inside. A study on folate changes during germination found that mung bean sprouts on day 4 contained 675 micrograms of folate per 100 grams fresh weight. That is nearly 4 times the concentration found in the dry seed. Folate is the vitamin critical for DNA synthesis, cell division, and fetal brain development. Pregnant women are told to take folate supplements. A jar of 4-day-old mung bean sprouts could deliver a significant portion of that requirement for essentially zero cost. No other food preparation method on Earth does all of these things at once with this magnitude of change. But the research did not stop there. It went somewhere far more consequential. The medical research on mung bean sprouts reads like something from a pharmaceutical company's wish list, except no pharmaceutical company funded it because you cannot patent a sprouted bean. A study published in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine found that aqueous extract from mung bean coats was protective against sepsis, one of the leading causes of death in hospitals worldwide. The compound worked by inhibiting a molecule called HMGB1, a protein involved in lethal systemic inflammation. Another study found that trypsin inhibitors isolated from mung bean sprouts reduced the migration of human colon cancer cells by approximately 50% over 72 hours. Fermented mung bean extract was shown to halt the progression of breast cancer cells by boosting the immune system's production of interleukin-2 and interferon gamma, Research on mung bean peptides demonstrated ACE inhibitory activity, meaning they work through a similar mechanism as prescription blood pressure medications. The proteins in sprouted mung beans have been studied for antibacterial, antifungal, anti-diabetic, and anti-inflammatory properties. Here is what should bother you. These findings were published in peer-reviewed journals. They were conducted at respected universities. They describe a food that is available in every Asian grocery store in the Western world for a few dollars a pound and can be sprouted at home in a jar on your kitchen counter in less than a week. And yet, how many doctors have recommended mung bean sprouts to their patients? How many nutritional guidelines mention them? How many school lunch programs include them? The answer, in the West at least, approaches zero. Instead, we have an aisle of supplements. Vitamin C tablets extracted from a factory, antioxidant capsules in plastic bottles, protein powders processed through industrial machinery. The global dietary supplement industry is worth over $170 billion. A jar of sprouted mung beans on your counter competes with every one of those bottles. It provides vitamin C, antioxidants, complete protein with all essential amino acids, folate, vitamin K, iron, and polyphenols, in a form your body evolved to recognize: whole food, not isolated chemicals, not synthetic reproductions, the actual living compounds surrounded by the cofactors and companion molecules that help your body absorb them. Research increasingly shows that nutrients consumed in whole food form are absorbed more effectively than isolated supplements. Your body recognizes food, it does not always recognize pills. A handful of mung bean sprouts is not just cheaper than a bottle of vitamins. Based on current research, it may actually be more effective. Now here's where the story leaves Earth, literally. On June 3, 2021, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launched from Cape Canaveral, carrying cargo to the International Space Station. Among the payload was an experiment called Space Beans. Mung bean seeds, selected specifically for their protein density, nutritional profile, and rapid germination, were sent to orbit 250 miles above the planet to test whether they could sprout in microgravity. The team behind the experiment chose mung beans for a reason that echoes everything we have discussed. They are full of protein, vitamins, fibers, and antioxidants. They sprout rapidly, and they require almost nothing to grow. But it was a separate study that revealed something even more extraordinary about mung beans and space travel. In 2021, Italian researchers published a paper testing mung bean sprouts under simulated space conditions. They exposed germinating mung bean seeds to increasing doses of X-ray radiation, the same type of ionizing radiation astronauts face in deep space, and then grew them under different light conditions. What they discovered was remarkable. Mung bean sprouts grown under red and blue LED light not only survived the radiation, but actually produced more antioxidant compounds in response to it. The combination of specific light wavelengths and radiation stress triggered the sprouts to manufacture higher levels of flavonoids and isoflavones, the very compounds that protect cells from radiation damage. The plant was literally creating its own radiation shield. NASA's own documentation states that antioxidant-rich foods like beans would have the added benefit of providing some space radiation protection for crew members who eat them. The food that protects astronauts from cosmic radiation on a journey to Mars grows in a jar on your kitchen counter in 5 days. Think about that connection for a moment. The same LED technology that NASA helped pioneer for growing plants in space is available at your local hardware store. The same seed that sustained Indian civilization for 4,000 years is sitting in the bulk aisle of your grocery store. The same sprouting process that billions of people across Asia have used for centuries requires nothing more than water and a container you already own. The technology, the knowledge, and the biology have been available this entire time. Nobody connected the dots for you, because nobody profits when you do this yourself. So why do almost no Western households sprout mung beans at home? 3 structural forces compound each other, and understanding them explains not just mung beans, but the entire architecture of why simple, powerful foods get sidelined. The first force is visual bias. We have been trained since childhood that protein means meat. A thick steak, a grilled chicken breast, a carton of eggs. The protein supplement industry reinforces this with images of muscular bodies in industrial-looking powder containers. A jar of tiny white sprouts growing on your windowsill does not look like protein to someone raised in Western food culture. It does not photograph well for Instagram. It does not come in a package with a nutrition facts panel and a bold font screaming 20 grams of protein. But a single cup of cooked mung beans delivers 14 grams of protein. Sprouted, the protein becomes more digestible, and the amino acid profile improves. Mung bean protein isolates have been measured at 87% pure protein, with essential amino acids exceeding World Health Organization requirements. The second force is economic incompatibility. A 1-pound bag of dried mung beans costs between $2 and $4. That single bag can produce 10 to 15 pounds of sprouts. At grocery store prices, mung bean sprouts sell for $2 to $4 per pound. You just grew $20 to $60 worth of food from a $4 bag, using nothing but water and time. No corporation can build a profitable supply chain around something that multiplies its own volume by 10 in your kitchen. No equipment manufacturer sells specialized mung bean sprouting tractors. No processing facility stands between you and your food. Every middleman in the food system loses revenue when you sprout beans in a jar. And here's a number that makes this even more absurd. India alone produces over 50% of the world's mung beans. The total global production runs into millions of tons annually. Mung bean plants also fix